Hi, you're listening to the Dwelling Place Lounge, where your hosts, Pease Jones and Ray Daniel, and their weekly guests will take you further into God's Word, addressing your concerns, thoughts, and those hard questions you may have about our weekly Sunday church messages at the Dwelling Place Church in Anchorage, Alaska. We are so glad that you are joining us, and we know that you will turn this podcast off knowing God more than you did when you pressed play. Now, on to our show.
Hello, everybody. This is Ray.
You wish.
I'd be so lucky. No, this is Philip Bryce Jones the first, and over here I have the one, the only, Ray.
The first.
Ray the first. Are you actually the first, or are you a junior?
No, I'm a first.
Off camera today, we have Brandon A. Paul watching us. He's like the Jamie on the Jogan Rogan show. The Jogan Roe show. So he will be looking us up and distracting us the entire time. Perfect. You're doing it well. Anyway, so this is our first podcast in like a month. We took about a month off. It wasn't planned. It just kind of happened that way. I don't know why. I think first, like, you were gone, and then we just didn't do it, and then we're already, like, 2 weeks in and decided, you know what, this is good. But, honestly, I think Esther, like, we kind of covered a lot. I don't think we missed a ton of content that would have been on the show.
Yeah, it was more like a story than, story.
Story time.
Yeah.
But it was good. We learned a lot, and you know what? I think we all came out of that learning a little bit about ourselves and
The
listen,
Bible?
dang it, gosh, yes, the Bible and God. I was going to say
And
that.
Esther.
Is that no, that wasn't the eunuch. I'm joking, that is the main character. Anyway, we are on to brand new things today. We are starting our new sermon series titled
Redefined. Man, your timing's off today. We should have
beat me to it. But yes, Redefined. And do you want to share the whole reason why we're going through this series?
to not compare. I was going to say compare.
No, I think that's good.
Yeah, comparing earthly definitions to the Bible definitions and refocusing on what our definition should be instead of what the earth's definition is.
Yeah, perfectly.
You perfectly
Perfect.
said that.
You said that great.
I
yeah.
said that opposite too.
You could tell it's been a while. My talking is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. You're supposed to say, no, you're doing great. But anyway, that is exactly right. The world has such a way of defining things that, well, you know what? Like, I feel like sin in general is twisted things, or like good things that are twisted. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah.
I'm tracking.
Yeah, you're tracking, right?
Yeah.
Just for instance, God made flowers and we made heroin. It's a good thing, it's just twisted. Heroin's not good, don't get me wrong, heroin's bad, but the poppy flowers were good, and then we made them all not good, you know?
Yeah.
Now my grandma can't even have a poppy in her backyard, and I can't eat a muffin,
Yeah.
so... So anyway, that's what we're talking about is seeing where the world kind of like twists these little definitions and unkinking the knot, or the hose, I guess. So today's topic is love, or this week's topic is love. We're also going to cover other ones such as wisdom and truth and identity.
Why are you spoiling it for everybody? They're supposed to come and find out.
No, that's like the trailer. The trailer, this is the trailer. You got to show some stuff to make people be like, yes, I want to learn about truth.
But you didn't know there was going to be a sequel to Happy Feet until like 10 years later.
Okay, some things go straight to DVD, and they're always not good. But anyway, these aren't going straight to DVD. They're going straight to YouTube. And let's dive into it. So do you want to open us up with some prayer, Ray?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Dear God, I just want to thank you for this evening and just this podcast, our church, and just the opportunity to refocus on what your definitions are. And I just pray that you help Paige and I talk through this and discuss and ask questions. And I just pray that we're able to direct people in the right way. And I just pray that you're able to be honored and glorified in it all. And I just pray that you give us the wisdom and the knowledge to talk about this. And I just pray that it all comes from you. And just want to pray for the people listening, and I just pray that you be with us all and we're able to grow closer to you. In your name I pray. Amen.
Man, so one of the first things about covering the topic of love is that love is such a huge conversation. And I feel like we could have just made this whole series be titled Redefining Love and then just go like 5 weeks into that. Because the thing is, today or yesterday, Sunday, and now today, we are talking about love, but we're talking about challenging the sin in each other's life and how that is a loving thing to do. So kind of one of the big takeaways is that love is challenging other people. But the thing is that love is not just challenging people. If that was love, I don't know. That'd be strange. There is so much more to it than that. So there could have been a billion different points that I could have made about the generalized topic of love. But I just want you guys to know that we stuck to this specific angle of love. But love is also caring and patient. And then there's also romantic love. And then there's God's love for us. And so there's a whole different slew of things. Yes?
Oh, I was just looking up the different types of love in the Bible.
Read them.
And so there's agape, which is God's love for humankind. And then there is philia. I think that's how you pronounce it. Brotherly love that unites believers. So that's the kind of love that PJ's talking about. There's, well, these aren't like the Greek words, but
You're doing great, son.
the third one is storage, which is like, it says familial love, and then there's eros, which is sensual love, romantic love. But I was hoping to find like the Greek name for each one, but maybe Brandon could be that person to look it up
Yeah,
for
the
us.
Jamie.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Wait, kairos, phileo, eros.
Yep.
Okay. Phileo.
Philea.
Okay. Agape.
Agape. And then. Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
so I did get them right. They just didn't sound like a different
Yeah,
language.
you did good. I thought agape is what tequila is made out of.
It's agave.
I thought that was love. No, I'm joking. And
Storge is the last one.
Oh, I said
he said storage.
I read it as storage.
Is storge.
It's an empathetic bond, such as the bond between a mother and child or a person and their pet.
An empathetic bond between a mother and child or a person and their pet. That's what storage is.
Yep.
Yeah, storge. Yeah, so cool. So there's all these different types of love. I don't want you guys to think or to walk out of yesterday's message and be like, must challenge everybody all the time because that's all love is. Nope, that's the angle we're covering. So anyway, I reckon a good place to start is just let's go over that story one more time, that chunk between Nathan and David. And then just so we can like have that in here and know that this is like what we're referring back to. Do you want to go ahead and read it? You
Yep.
got it open.
And I'm going to read 1 through 14. Right? 1 through 15.
Yes, it's 1 through 15.
Okay.
Or like half of 15.
Okay. The Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to him, he said, "There were 2 men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb he had bought. He raised it, and it grew with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, "As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over, because he did such a thing and had no pity." Then Nathan said to David, "You are that man, or you are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave your master's house to you, and your master's wives into your arms. I gave you all Israel and Judah. And if all this had been too little, I would have given you even more. Why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now, therefore, the sword will never depart from your house, because you despised me and took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your own. This is what the Lord says: out of your own household I'm going to bring calamity on you. Before your very eyes I will take your wives and give them to the one who is close to you, and he will sleep with your wives in broad daylight. You did it in secret, but I will do this thing in broad daylight before all Israel." Then David said to Nathan, "I have sinned against the Lord." Nathan replied, "The Lord has taken away your sin. You are not going to die, but because by doing this you have shown utter contempt for the Lord, the son born to you will die."
Then Nathan went to his house.
After Nathan had gone home, the Lord struck the child of that Uriah's wife had born to David,
Dang. Well,
and he became ill.
I mean, God said he was going to do that, and he did it. You know, it's kind of like what stands out to me in one of these is, like, first of all, how quick David was to, like, condemn somebody else when he himself, like, it was about him. You know, that story was about him. You don't really see him, like, taking his own actions into a, like, he wasn't like, well, you know what, I've messed up too. He was just like, this man deserves to die.
Yeah, you mentioned it yesterday.
Did I?
Um,
Oh wait, you're sorry. Keep going.
about the verse. You mentioned it briefly about don't worry about the speck in your brother's eye when you have a log in your eye.
Mhm.
That verse.
Yeah.
And that kind of summarizes that whole
Yeah.
situation.
He definitely was looking at the speck when he had a major tree hanging out of his face.
A whole forest.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of one of the main parts of our podcast today is I kind of ended with saying that it is like we are capable of doing this whole challenging thing incorrectly. You can have all of the knowledge and you can even be right about your challenging of other people, but if you don't challenge people out of love, you're also in the wrong. Maybe if the other person is patient and merciful, they're still able to, like, take out the good of what you said, but we can love people poorly by challenging in a way that is not cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I also feel like that if you're not challenging yourself either, you can't challenge other people in the right way either. Like, you'll be blinded, similar to the speck in the log
Yeah.
story.
And also be open to receiving challenge as well. If you're going to challenge other people on their life and call them out of sin and back to Christ, you also, like, it's not a one-way street. If you're going to speak into somebody's life like that, you need to allow them to speak into your life as well. If they Yeah. But that's one of the other things is I feel like it's so easy for Christians to just go looking for a fight. And if you go to any Christian video online on, like, Instagram, the comments are just the most, like, heated place. and all of the internet because people are just going crazy in the comments section, and everybody just wants to be right, and they want their voice to be heard. And nobody is, I can't say nobody, but many people are not responding to the video out of love. They are responding just out of anger. You're not teaching what I believe, and you're wrong, and I'm right. So I'm going to like make it public and on Facebook, you know? It's like that one dude that made a big fit about me wearing my hat backwards online. You know what I'm saying? Or like that guy had no love intention in his heart. I mean, maybe he did, but didn't seem like it. You rebel. But I'm just using this as an example, right? This dude saw something he didn't agree with, and he may have possibly even seen it as sin for me to wear my hat backwards while teaching. It's not sin. He is wrong about this. But if he saw it as sin and wanted to confront me, that's one thing. Like, that's fine. The issues are, first of all, me and this random stranger have no relationship at all. Why are you going to confront somebody about something when you don't even know the guy? I feel like 90%, 91% of challenging confrontations need to come between friends who are able to speak into each other's life. There are times to speak up when you're not friends, and that's okay too. But again, I think when you do that, it needs to line up with the whole 1 Corinthians 13, being patient, kind, merciful. But then on top of that, so first of all, this guy did not know me at all and just wanted to rattle off online. But then he just totally did it the wrong way. There was no like, hey man, I appreciate what you're doing, but I think you need to rethink the hat thing. What he did was he said, you're not a preacher. You got your hat on backwards. Nobody should listen to you. Even if you're saying good things, it's bad. Like, no, dude, this isn't how that's not how you do this. It's not how you do this. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Especially because in verse 1 of chapter 12, it says that the Lord sent Nathan to David, and at this time, David was a king, so you could imagine that Nathan had that. I'm sure Nathan had like that nervousness or the doubt to be like, oh, I'm gonna go up to the king and call him out on his crap. And in reality, the Lord calls Nathan to call out David, and it's a like a God thing, you know. And so, if God like were to ask that man to do something, or I'll just do a different example. If God were to tell me to talk to you about something, then like it'd be easier for me to do. It'd be easier for me to come and talk to you and like bring it up because I know it's from God, and it's obviously the right time. And then versus like if I just went up to you and was like calling you out on your craft for, well, you'd probably still be okay with it because of our friendship. But if I was a stranger, it'd be like,
it is because we have a friendship.
Yeah. And then if we weren't, then if God told me to, then it'd be a different story too. Yeah.
And when we look at Jesus doing it, I mean, Jesus didn't just call out the sin in his friends' lives and not anybody else. But Jesus, you don't really see him going out looking for a fight.
Yeah. It comes to him.
He goes to the well, and there's a woman sitting there, and they strike up a conversation. And then Jesus does what Jesus does. And I mean, there are times in our life where we are given opportunities to speak the truth in love to people who are not our quote unquote friends. And it's fine. And it can even be good. But we have to not, I wanted to say walk on eggshells, but that's not what I'm trying to say. We have to walk in patience and love and mercy during those moments, knowing that we're kind of stepping into an area that Like, we don't actually know this person.
Yeah, it's all about discernment and
Yeah.
having that relationship with God.
And in those cases, you can clearly see that Jesus didn't care about, like, being alpha dog right guy, you know? I mean, he was confident. He knew he was right. Yeah, no question if he was wrong or not. But his deal with, like, the woman at the well, for example, was not to attack her or bring her down, but like our final point in this message yesterday, but to bring restoration into her life. He clearly loved this woman and wanted her to walk rightly. And so, out of that love, he gently, but I still think firmly, told her what she was doing in her life. And she responded out of humility and also probably a lot of like, oh my gosh, how in the world did he know this? But that's the difference. When we actually challenge our brothers and sisters in love, the way that the Bible would have you do it, or that God would have you do it, whatever, you do see a lot of the times that the restoration does happen. There's a proverb about gentle words. Brandon, do you know that one? A gentle word turns down.
Turns away wrath.
Yeah, a gentle word turns away wrath. Yeah, something. Can you look it up? Thank you, Jamie. Just kidding. He's not Jamie. He's Brandon. So what was something that
That was right.
what is it?
Proverbs 51.
Proverbs.
A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word
A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Yeah, Proverbs 15:1. Stirring up the anger. So yeah. What stuck out? Wait, is it stuck or stuck? Stuck.
Dude.
Stood. Yeah, that works. I was combining them. What stood out about yesterday's message was something that got you thinking.
Think back to the question real quick.
To the question we had at the end.
So there's 3 points. There was love challenges sin, love
Submits to
submits
Christ.
to Christ, and then love restores,
Seeks
um,
restoration.
seeks restoration. I would say the challenge thing, and relating to the passage, going back to the passage, would just be kind of what I mentioned earlier about how Nathan went up to King David and just called him out in it, and he didn't do it in, like, he used the story. He used like almost like a parable, like you said, and it was like a strategy for Nathan to show David that this is wrong, and then relating it to David so that David could understand. And I just think it's a powerful thing just because it goes to show how God relates to everybody and like speaks to everybody, and we're all made to understand different things in different ways. And so when David saw he didn't understand, it was like relating to him at first until after the fact that he was called out. And so I think it's cool to see like how Nathan made it so that David could understand it himself, and it wasn't like, and it was definitely from God because it made sense to David after the fact. It was explained by Nathan. And so that challenge portion stood out to me just because that challenged me, because I tend to shy away from it because like I'm like, I don't want to be pushy, I don't want to be, forceful and all that.
Well, we can actually convince ourselves that we are being loving by not calling out the
Yeah.
sin, And I mean, I do think, again, there's a time and a place and a way to do it. So it's not like the moment you see somebody's sin, you're like, yeah, there it is, and then like you jump on them.
Yeah. And even with like discernment, like it's still scary for me at least to
Mm-hmm.
call somebody out, especially like if I don't have like a developed relationship.
Yeah.
Like it'd be easier for me to call you out because,
because we know each other that way.
and then same with my wife and
But
vice versa.
even still, I mean, even when I know that this is something that I need to do, yeah, like even if it was with you, I would still be like, okay, and I would like, I'd probably would be extra awkward while we're talking for like the first 20 minutes and then be like, so,
Yeah, I mean, I'd be
But-
too, but it'd be easier than like
just, yeah.
somebody else.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be like,
But it can be intimidating,
Yeah.
man. But yeah, just because of the fear that we can have of other people and offending people and stuff, a lot of the times we can say, you know what, they are living wrong, but I'm just going to love them through it and let them figure it out on their own. And it's like, sometimes I understand. Sometimes it is not our place to jump down the throat of somebody else or to speak into their life like immediately. But a lot of the times that turns out to be more of an excuse to not walk in obedience rather than,
yeah,
it's if that decision is made out of wisdom, that's good. If it's made out of fear, that's not good.
the bad kind of fear.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
bad kind of fear. If you don't want to do it and you're excusing it because you're scared.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, there are those times when that's a wise thing to walk away instead of confronting. And the other thing I really liked about how Nathan handled this was it was so tactful. He shared the story. I just think if he would have gone up to David and said, "Hey, you did this thing. You murdered a guy and married his wife." First of all, he probably would have instantly become defensive. And he also would have tried to excuse away his sin. Well, you know what? Like, I'm the king and blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, as soon as he shared this story, David instantly cast what he considered a fair judgment on the perpetrator in this little parable story thing. And then Nathan was like, that's actually you who did that. And now there's no excusing it. He can't back out of what he just said. As soon as he said that, David cast a judgment. Nathan did the big reveal, "Hey, you're the man." And David was like, "Yeah. Yep. I did this. And the best part, and the reason why we we ended with love seeks restoration, is that at the end, David says, "I have sinned before God." And Nathan says, "God forgives you." And that's like why we do it. That's why Jesus did it, not to be right, not to be alpha, just whatever, like super Christian. There was no pride mixed in with how Jesus did his stuff. It was purely out of love. That's why we'd say, go and sin no more, because that's not good.
So with the second point of yesterday's message, love submits to Christ. Where were you coming with that? Like, why did you come up with that second point from this story specifically?
Yeah, so right at the beginning, the very first thing it says is that the Lord sent Nathan. And the whole reason Nathan did what he did to David was because he was submitting to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord told him to go, and Nathan just said, okay. And if this was to anybody else, Nathan would have still have gone, because it wasn't just the love that Nathan had for David that he shared this. It was primarily the fact that Nathan was an obedient servant of God. And so when it comes to us, we have those moments in our life where we're like, this is the right thing to do. Confronting my brother, confronting my sister is the right thing to do. And I know it's the right thing to do. And the reason why we put it submits to Christ is because a lot of the times we end up, I'm speaking for myself here, really, but a lot of the times I end up submitting to my own fear and anxiety rather than submitting to Christ. And because it's a lot easier to let fear win when it comes specifically to confrontation, because I am not a confrontational person. And also, a lot of the times when I confront, because I'm scared and anxious, I tend to be very like harsh and straight to the point and like rigid. And so when we submit to Christ, we are able to lay that fear aside. It might still be kind of present. We might be aware of it, but we care more about being obedient to God than we do about being scared of the person. And so that submission to Christ will actually help us be more loving and a better brother to those around us.
Yeah, I also mentioned it earlier, but the fact that David was king at this time and how Nathan was able to not be afraid and saw Christ as like the higher king, basically, versus David being just the king. And so putting that aside, also think is a big factor in submitting to Christ and giving him your all.
Nathan could have just been killed.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have just been killed. And if it was any other king but David, there's a good chance that could have happened. But also, David did just kill somebody.
Yeah,
so it's like, well, and I mean, David was no stranger to killing thousands of people. But I wouldn't say he was a murderer until he murdered Uriah. Even then, he didn't do it by his own hands, but he definitely pulled the strings to make the murder happen. And he was held accountable not for conspiracy, but for murder. So, yeah, pretty interesting.
What about the third point being love restores, or love brings
Seeks
restoration?
Yeah.
Was that focusing on 13 through 16 or 13 through 15? When Nathan replied, "The Lord has taken away your sin. You're not going to," or I guess it'd be 11 through 15.
Yeah, when David said, "I've sinned," and he repented and God forgave him and stuff. Yeah, that is where that came from. But the reason why I brought it up is kind of what we talked about earlier. A lot of the times believers have the temptation not to confront out of love, but to confront because they want to be right, or they're mad, or they're prideful, or whatever. But none of those motivations seek restoration. They only seek building up our own self. And I might be challenging the sin on your life, but if I'm not doing it out of love, what I really want to hear you say is that you were wrong and I'm right. But that is not love. Love is saying, I see this, and it's affecting your relationship with God, and it's affecting your relationship with others, and I want to see that restored.
Yeah.
Or even saying, this has affected our relationship with each other, and I want to see that restored. And sometimes it's even a good idea. I mean, some sins against, from one person to ourselves personally, the end result, the end wise result, is to set up a boundary and be like, look, I can't continue talking to you every day, or being your best friend or whatever. But still, when it comes to that level of love, that confrontation still leads to the restoration of forgiveness in our hearts towards each other.
Yeah.
Just because you're setting up a boundary doesn't mean you're holding a grudge against somebody. It means you're setting up a boundary so that the other person doesn't fall into sin again and you don't fall into sin again. but still the result is love and restoration. Yeah, and that really digs into like we could do like redefined forgiveness maybe if we wanted,
Yeah.
because that's where like we're kind of going with that. But when you look at the world, when it like in terms of restoration, the world doesn't super duper care about seeking restoration with other people. In fact, it's more popular if you have a confrontation with somebody to just cut the tie and say, hey, if you aren't going to affirm my truth, then you're toxic. And I'm not going to like have you in my life.
You're holding me back.
Yeah. And that is like when it comes to the redefinition, we've talked this whole time about the biblical side of love, but the world side of this kind of love is not challenge or confrontation. It is affirmation. You have to affirm my decisions in life. And if you don't, you are now being unloving to me. And remember, I am talking about the world. This is not Christian love. This is what the generalized populace of the world would describe this kind of love as to you.
Yeah, I'd say the kingdom love would be I love you where you're at, but I love you too much to have you stay where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And then the earthly love would be I love you where you're at, and I'll let you do what you gotta do.
Yeah. And I know some people would consider that we are doing like a straw man argument here by like simplifying what the world would consider love and then attacking that. But you see it all over the place. There's uh there man, shoot, my mind just like totally went blank on what I was going to say. But yeah, thanks, Brandon. But people, the whole my truth thing, you can see that that was like so big like 2 years ago. The whole my truth moment, the whole my truth moment, and celebrities are like getting on Instagram and saying like I'm just living my truth, and everybody had something to say about their own dang truth. And so many families were like this also revolved around cancel culture. That wasn't just people like slamming their bosses and stuff online. I mean, there were families that were torn apart. I literally have seen this one person posting about how their own mom and dad were doing this own like were refusing to give in to this person's like truth. And she was like, I don't care if they're my parents. I'm going to blast them on Reddit because they need to learn. And like totally affects the entire family. All because they wouldn't affirm the sin that they wanted to live in, that they were calling truth for themselves. And so it's not a straw man argument. This is what has been happening historically.
Yeah, and I feel like godly love is an outward kind of love versus an inward selfish love, and which I know gets kind of a bad rep from Christians because of like the whole like earthly love. And I mean, we're living on this earth, so it's like hard to do it right, and we're human. And so with the outward love is like the 3 points, basically challenging, submitting, and then restoring. And then same thing goes for yourself inwardly, but then there's a balance, of inward love and outward love. There's that fine line of being selfish and loving yourself, and then loving others in a godly way.
Yeah. And I was actually like wondering this in the car today, just in my own mind. But I was like, why did I share these 3 specific points? I shared like the 3 ones you just mentioned, right? But I realized the reason why I shared it, and I probably should have said this during the message, I just didn't think about it. But if you are considering confronting somebody in your life or around you, you can kind of tell if you're coming at this with the right heart and motivation by lining up the situation with these 3 points. Does this confrontation that you have, is it going to challenge their sin specifically and challenge them to repent and to turn back and go to Christ? Is this confrontation submitting to Christ, or are you submitting out of your own, like, are you submitting to your own pride or fear or whatever? Because if that's what you're submitting to, hold back for a little bit, you know? Make sure that you are in line with Christ first and foremost. That's who you're actually submitting to by confronting somebody. And then thirdly, again, are you seeking restoration, or do you just want to argue and be correct? Because if that's the case, then you're not walking in love. But if those 3 boxes are checked, chances are you are walking in love. And again, like, we could create more check boxes, you know, and make this like a really thorough application process, but you don't really need to. You know, those 3 cover a lot. So yeah, that's kind of the real life application on what to do with the message and act on it, like today or in the future. I mean, I'm not telling you go out and look for somebody to confront, but when that situation comes up, because it will, yeah, look there.
Anything else?
Yeah.
What?
What was your answer for the question yesterday?
I said it earlier. I said
The challenge one?
Yeah, the challenge one.
I think the one that I struggle with the most would be submitting to Christ one.
Yeah.
But like, there's a little bit of a caveat there, because I genuinely do want to submit to Christ when it comes to confronting people. And if I do confront somebody, it's probably because I have submitted to Christ, because I can be quite fearful, like, in this area of life. But I do have to, like, check my heart to make sure that I'm not going to slide into the temptation of just wanting to be right, you know, or like being annoyed or irritated with the person's sin and responding out of irritation instead of love.
Yeah, for me, it's similar to yours as well. And it's more of like a fear thing, like you're mentioning, where I'll be afraid of like being pushy, judgy. But then there's also that part of me where like I've been there. And so I'm like, where I'll say like, I've experienced this before and this is what has come from it. So like, I'm advising you not to do it. And I get like irritable and annoyed
when they don't listen.
And then the same thing happens that happened to me, or like something similar. And like that selfish, I told you so, like, wants to come out, you know? And like, that's when I have to like be like, I have to love them. And I have to like check myself with these, like challenging, loving them and submitting to Christ in that, and then restoring them.
That is so relatable, man. And I also think like another important thing to mention is the like effect between the 2 people after this kind of confrontation is made. Because historically in my life, when people have confronted me and I've confronted them, it has only strengthened our relationship with each other. I actually trust the people more who are willing to step out and talk to me about something in my life, because I can tell that they love me and they truly want the best for me. And if they did not want me to have a strong relationship with Jesus or with my wife or whatever, that they wouldn't bother to do this. So having those people to speak out in your life and also being that guy for other people, it really does build friendships that are solid. It also helps you grow in humility too, because it sucks getting called out.
Yeah, and another thing too, and this doesn't apply every time, but this is more of like an encouragement. If the person that you're confronting doesn't take it the right way, and if you're following these steps of being loving, then it's not like it's not because of you. It's because of their heart and not wanting to respond, and they're not ready to respond to it yet. And so
Yeah.
I encourage you not to like put yourself down or to like be like, I'm never doing that again, because it's not only you, and you can only do so much through Christ, and then God has to do the rest through them.
Yeah. Now, if you did go up and you were an absolute jerk about it.
I said if you're loving. If you
Okay,
follow these
yeah,
three
yeah,
steps,
yeah.
that's what I said.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're on the same page. But if you are a jerk about it and they don't listen and you're like, they're awful, terrible people, man, shut up, dude.
Yeah.
Like, fix it. Fix yourself. Fix yourself. Maybe you need to get called out. But anyway, yeah, I feel like that is the primary gist of it today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next week, and
Yeah.
peace.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Dwelling Place Lounge. If you're interested to learn more about the Dwelling Place Church, please visit our website, thedwellingplaceak.com. Also, if you have a moment, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps spread God's word to others, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, thank you for listening. God bless, and we hope you join us again in the next episode of the Dwelling Place Lounge.